happens in like Zoom chats that are of 3 people. That there's it's like the old school ground. You know, you got to pick a side.
Yeah.
And so there's always one team that ends up ganging up on the one. So here we go.
Sorry,
but we are
bro.
live on Ye Olde Facebook and we're live on Ye Olde YouTube. Just going to double check a couple of things, but we're looking all good. So g'day, internet, the world, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to a very, very special edition of Friday Night Drinks here on oakbarrel.com.au/live. My name is Scott Fitzsimons, and I am very pleasured to introduce some very, very special guests from not too far away, funnily enough. We've done a lot of these streams with international guests and people from far-flung places around Australia. This time we've just got people west that way a little bit and then a little bit further. But Ally Nick Ayres from the Karu distillery out in Gracevale and Crafty Field from the Craftworks distillery in Kapiti. Guys, how are we?
Hello.
Good, how are you?
Yes, very, very well. So tonight we've got a little bit of a theme going in that it is World Gin Day tomorrow, and we've got a very special collaboration to launch, and I get to try it. No one else who isn't on the stream gets to try it, apart from the 3 streams here, because it's not technically released yet until tomorrow morning. But yeah, we're going to have a bit of fun, a bit of a chat. So we're doing. But before we do anything, I'd like to say a quick g'day again to all you guys, and if we could find out what we're drinking or what we have been drinking in the lead up to the stream. Maybe starting with Team Karu.
Yeah. Tequila and soda. Can't go wrong.
I thought you had like gin and tonic, so then I poured gin and tonic, but I'm jealous of the tequila and soda.
I probably should be drinking our own product. But...
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. For anyone watching, we are live on the Facebooks and the YouTube, but you can also jump into the Zoom chat. I'll post that link as well. That's but really easy. Whatever you want to do, whatever you don't want to do. Crafty, what are you on?
Well, I was about to pour a sensational barrel-aged gin, but then Nick piped up about the Sherry Fino.
Yeah,
The Oak Barrel Masterclass a couple of weeks ago, virtual. So I went and got mine out of the fridge. It's a real good palate cleanser.
It is good. Now, before we go too further, it's been a pretty constant theme for people to walk around and say, Christ, it's been a bit of a year, hasn't it? And I think actually the last time the 4 of us were in the same room together was at the Aussie Spirit Auction. When we were celebrating how great it was to come out of such a shithouse start to 2020 and, to get on with our lives and get back to doing what we love doing and then X, Y, Z. But I remember on that day thinking and speaking to some people, I might have even said it when I was presenting, is just how tired the 3 of you looked and how hard you had to work. And I don't know how you stood up and got to the end of that night after having to set up everything and serve drinks and work bars, because in terms of not just, the current pandemic, but you guys are pretty affected by bushfires as well. So first and foremost, how are you guys doing? Are you okay? Can you smile again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Took
Can't
a while.
complain.
At this point of time, it's just pretty much the normal. So
Yeah, we've had 7 months of survival mode. We've just kind of adjusted to it.
yeah, we
It's
haven't
all
even
right.
been out for 2 years commercially, so
That's all right.
it's all
what
good.
It is.
It is what it is, and as long as you just come out on the other side, what more can you really ask for?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. A quick g'day before Crafty, you answer that to James Finnegan, David Andor, Caroline Taylor, and to Matt Bailey, who's looking forward to our mineral water versus tonic water tasting a little bit later on tonight. Good, yeah, Matt's taking a piss. That's good. I like to see Matt taking a piss. Shows he has a sense of humour, which not many people know about. But Crafty, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, mate, doing really, really well, to be honest. It was interesting because we went through the whole fire season, the New South Wales fire season, and Nick and Ellie and myself, we were going through it exactly the same time, and it was horrible, absolutely horrible. Both physically you're exhausted, emotionally, and sales opportunities completely wiped out. But come off the back of that, I think we've all built up some resilience. So when COVID came along, I went under the sheets for 4 days like everyone else and went, what the am I going to do with business? But just sort of go, well, hang on a sec. There's opportunities out there, and just sort of regroup. And it's been fantastic. COVID's been really good, to be honest, from a business sense, and just getting out and getting the name out there and having different types of conversations. And like the Zoom format, virtual's a whole different world now, and it's not going away. It's great, the connection.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, Crafty, we spoke a little bit about this yesterday. Is like the need to adapt and be flexible. And I know from our point of view, the Oak Barrel is a 64-year-old business. It probably needs tests like this every now and again to make sure that we're as flexible and we need to be. You guys are relatively, well, compared to the Oak Barrel, very young businesses, but like in the grand scheme of things, very young businesses. How have you guys found it? Reacting to a world that is completely different to what we expected it to be 6 months ago?
I don't even know how to begin to answer.
Tough question before we even start drinking properly.
It's been quite interesting. You sort of learn.
This is going to be fun.
You learn to sort of adapt quite quickly. You kind of start. It's actually been kind of good learning what hasn't worked in your business leading up to it. And to be honest, it's given us some time at the actual distillery rather than being out on the road all the time to start focusing on our dark spirits and laying down our cask of rum and actually refining that art and that system a lot more. So it's kind of, it's just been adapting to each one. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, every day is just taking it as it kind of arrives and then just ending it.
The support from everyone, moving the shift towards everyone starting to support a lot more of Australian businesses and a lot more Australian made and owned has really helped us. That's probably the best thing that's come out of COVID, to be honest.
And it's also taught us how to be a lot more supportive of other businesses as well, because we have gone through such a horrible time since the end of October to still currently with fires, floods, and then pandemic, how to, a lot of other people haven't really had to experience, especially all in one condensed platform, that kind of traumatic instances. So when something like COVID that's really serious and affects a lot of people, especially hospitality, how to be there for them as well, which is I guess a good thing for us.
Yeah. Look, it's these daiquiri times. We all have to get through it. One thing you touched on there that I think we should probably start talking about is dark spirits and aging and the concept of this. And this is why we are here tonight to celebrate the barrel-aged gin, a New South Wales, if that focuses properly, a New South Wales distillers collaboration with Karu and Craftworks. Some information on the back. I've just posted a link on the Facebook if anyone wants to actually read a little bit more in depth. This is something that I've heard about. I remember sitting dead sober and not hungover at all, very early morning at a distillery out in Mendooran around a smouldering fire having some breakfast. People sharing some new make. You guys might have been there as well. Everyone was definitely not hungover.
No, definitely not.
No, it's not.
And that was World Whiskey Day. So, a touch over a year ago, and you guys were talking about this crazy thing called a collaboration barrel-aged gin. Here we are a year and a bit down the track, and it's in my hot little hands. But let's rewind and go, where did this idea come from? Barrel-aged gins are quite a historic thing, but not particularly, they're starting to be in modern eras. What was it that made you three sort of get together and say, okay, barrel-aged gin, this is not a bad idea?
Crafty started it.
Crafty started it. It's his fault.
Yeah.
It started with a very simple idea, though. And it started with the idea that I didn't have a gin. And I thought, I'm a whiskey maker. And I thought, how cool would it be to do a barrel-aged gin? And I was aware of barrel-aged gins, but I knew nothing about them. So then I talked to Nick and Ally, and I said, guys, would you be able to work with me, help me make a barrel-aged gin? And they were like, yeah. And then my thinking was just to take a gin and just put it in the barrel and let the barrel do the work. But Ally looked at it, and at first, you remember Ally, it was like, it was almost like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, because we were talking about taking affinity and just putting it in the barrel. And I was like, it just doesn't make sense. So,
typical whiskey distiller. Just spirit, barrel. Yeah, fine, whatever.
wrong. Exactly right. So then Ally and Nick ran with the idea and sort of fine-tuned it and came back to me and said, yeah, we think this could be a really interesting project. And so we talked about it backwards and forwards, and there was one barrel which I was thinking of, and it was my first sherry barrel, which was Just Derek. I'm drinking the last of my last open bottle. There's hardly anything left. And then, Nick and Ally took it and ran with it, and we went backwards and forwards, did some prototyping, tasted it, and it just sort of went from there. I think the biggest challenge for us was actually bringing it to a point where we could put it in the bottle and sell it, because we kept meeting up and going, you know, that barrel-aged gin, we better do that. We better finish it.
Yeah.
Just went on and on, didn't it, guys?
Yeah. I think.
Sorry, Ally, just quick one there. Just going to do a quick g'day to the Crafty Fields fan club is, piled into the Facebook chat there. So a quick g'day to Darren Common. And Ben Hamilton has a couple of questions for you that I'll get to in a second. But sorry, Ally, like what happens when Crazy Crafty comes to you and says, can I put some gin in a barrel? When you're the one responsible to step back and go, okay, how do I make this idea actually legible and make sense to everyone?
Well, you say no really quickly and you try to really save it and not offend him. Because it was pretty much like the story behind Just Derek. So when we went to the Oak Barrel for Crafty's, like his release and his evening and stuff like that, was when it really that spirit really resonated, that the story behind it really resonated with us. And so it was all about kind of like Crafty learning which spirit is for him and stuff like that. And so we kind of conceptually took that, because I didn't really think that gin at this point in our journey wasn't really a barrel-aged spirit. Like, people were doing it, but I didn't really understand it too much. So it was just taking that on board and learning about it in that regard. And so I took that approach to it, and it really kind of connected to, I guess, like the story and the history of the barrel in that way. So it then becomes like the history of the barrel and a bit of Karu history in there as well. So we wanted to design a gin that was tailored based on the flavors of the barrel and using that as a botanical in the gin, and not so much about just putting affinity in there, because it's not a barrel-aged gin. It's just not. So just taking that approach and just creating something new and something that might do the same for other people who might take it and just go, well, I also didn't believe that it could be a barrel-aged kind of spirit, but taking just a new contemporary approach to it and just bringing something new to the table.
Yeah. And the Karu fan club has found out that the Crafty fan club was in the group in FPAL now. The fairy godmother of Australian spirits, Kathleen Davies, is president of the Karu fan club, self-appointed. And a quick g'day to Dave Pearce and Ali Banner from down in Tassie as well, joining in there.
Hey, guys.
Ali, I know that, so you've got this barrel, and Crafty, I want to talk about the heritage of the barrel in a little bit and where it sort of came from. But in terms of this product, you've got this barrel. I love that sort of concept of using it as a botanical. And I know, Nick, we all love you, but we know who the brains of the operation is, don't we? Yeah. So I'm sure there's a question relevant to Nick at some point. But
someone's got to pick the barrel up, right?
Yeah.
Someone needs to carry it.
Yeah, the human forklift. We love it.
That's now.
So you guys have obviously had some experience making a gin. You've got this other botanical, which is a very different sort of botanical. It's going to react different ways and do different things to the botanicals. What's your thought process when you smell that barrel, when you start your first batches? And I'm going to start pouring a decent glass of it for myself while you explain that.
Excellent. So gin is a very aromatic spirit. So that's probably what it is best known for. And then like I would say, in my opinion, what do I know? And then taste second. So when you smell a barrel, you kind of get the characteristics of what's coming out of it now. Yeah, so you're kind of taking that approach to it. So you're going, okay, what aromatics does this barrel have? You know what's gone into it beforehand. You know its history or its heritage. So you're just kind of working with that, and you familiarize with those sorts of spirits. And then you also educate yourself on the wood and because different woods do different things. Some are more porous, some are less porous, and just going and taking all of that information and using that with the spirit that you are familiar with, and just trying to apply it together and just hoping for the best. And so I really knuckled down with this one as well, and just taking different characteristics from a gin perspective, because you can have something that's smoky, but there's several different types of smoke. There's like medicinal, there's sweet smoke, like whiskey lovers know where I'm kind of coming from here. So it was just taking that kind of approach to it and applying it to another really aromatic spirit. Yeah. And adding them together and hoping that it just tastes good, and it was tasting good.
Yeah.
A couple of comments here. David Pierce, can't wait to taste. Dave and/or Caroline Taylor says, what's the chance of getting a bottle in Tassie? Well, the Oak Barrel is very lucky to have a very small amount of bottles that are on the website now, but it's the local drinks market, Lindsay's.
Yeah, the craft drinks market.
Craft
so
drinks
they've
market,
been a really big supporter of Australian craft spirits, and we were actually going to launch there. But due to the health crisis, they weren't able to go ahead with things, so we weren't able to release it there. So we decided that we were just going to release it online there and to select retailers.
Yeah. So search. In fact, I think the link is on the Karu website as well. I checked earlier. If you search the Karu website, it'll direct you to. Lucas Catul says, "Hello, you crazy bunch." G'day to Lucas up in Newcastle there.
Hey.
And Colby Wales says that's a very well balanced, unbalanced beanie, Crafty. And what you don't know, Colby, is actually stuck to his head. Glue. Yeah.
I actually bought one of those like Crafty's iconic hat for this collaboration process, and I was wearing it as I was making the gin.
Yeah, she'd wear it as she's making it.
It looked a lot better.
Yeah.
I don't think I can pull it off.
So like I'm tasting this now, and I think something that I've come to sort of acknowledge with all barrel-aged gins, particularly whiskey barrel-aged gins, and there have been a few Aussie ones in the past couple of years, is you almost need to take your gin hat off a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
It's gin, it has juniper in it, but juniper for me is one of the botanicals that hides quickest in a barrel. So there's lots of citrus, lots of vanilla. Like the three of you, is that like, how do you manage that concept of, having juniper in a gin, but it's not particularly the thing that's going to work in a barrel? Like, was citrus something that you identified quite early?
Yes. Yeah. So, and it was also how you treated the juniper as well. So we wanted it to work with the wood. So I smoke infused it with apple wood. So, and also like, because anyone out there who like, I don't use a smoker to smoke meat or anything like that, because I'm veggie and I'm one of those annoying people, but it kind of gives off, everyone's laughing. It gives off like different woods give off different smoke. So again, it just backtracks to that whole kind of gin approach of doing things. So I applewood smoke infused juniper berries and then put them in to go with the kind of the sherry profile of that gin, and not to overpower it, and also not to hide the juniper either.
Yeah. I mean, Nick, from your time to shine, baby.
Come on.
I just thought nodded off.
How did you see this project? Obviously, I know by knowing you personally, you're a big fan of aged and dark spirits, and I think we're most excited when we're talking about rum together. How did what from your point of view? How did you see it develop, and what were the things that excite you about the end product?
What excited me about the whole project was developing botanicals to go in developing the gin to go in a barrel. So we actually, one of the reasons this took so long was we first did several distillations to get the gin to how we think it would work. We then put that in the cask, let it sit for a bit, pulled it out, and played around again with the botanical ratio to work what was working with the wood. And so the whole R&D side of this was really enjoyable, because just seeing what sort of highlighted more over 3 months, 2 months. And then of course with gin, you've got, when you add any amount of botanical extra, it really, really changes your gin completely. So just seeing that in change within the barrel was really cool. Just the overall project as well was a lot of fun. Doing it with Crafty, getting the barrel over to Karu and then designing it, and then trying to get Crafty around for distilling, and we end up just talking for 4 or 8 hours. But no, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was because we're both shed distilleries, so we're in the middle of nowhere and don't get to see people all that often. It was just really good to have someone else that kind of understands exactly where you're coming from, and just you don't have to explain every step of the way. You can just do it.
It's been a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
So basically, it was an exercise in saying good day to someone.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah.
There's another side to it though too, which you should mention, and that's we have a relationship where we recharge off each other. It's really interesting. I can be a bit flat and I can go and talk to Nick and Ally, and I come out and it's I'm ready to take it on again, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's very fundamental to our friendship. Yeah. And so we've done this collaboration. We share information, and we're both big on collaborations and big promoting New South Wales and just sharing and working with other people, aren't we?
Yeah,
definitely.
We are.
Dave Pierce does chime in on the Facebook, says, sounds like a bloody good excuse to drink with fellow distillers. And I think I'm getting that sense as well. It was
we nearly didn't release it.
Excuse for a party.
Yeah.
There was 260 bottles, but I don't know, somehow 230 bottles came out.
Yeah. So 230 bottles, this is batch one. I've had a couple of quick tasting notes there. I had a quick sip. The palate is super complex. There's lots of spice. There's citrus and, again, a hint of that vanilla. Almost a little bit of menthol-y sort of note. It's sort of there's a lot going on there. From you guys, what do you get out of the of the finished product?
Yeah, so with our other gins and stuff like that, it's all about having flavor across the palate, and we didn't want this gin to be anything different from that. So I always get a very kind of a spiced juniper kind of nose, and then it smells kind of warm, and then when you have it, it delivers on that promise tenfold. You get that menthol, as you kind of mentioned, which is really warming, but it's also quite sweet at the same time, with kind of a tiny hint of choc jaffa.
Yeah, the choc jaffa parts.
Yeah,
I love that. I get this little bit of nice sweet sort of smoke mid palate, and then I get a really light sherry at the end, just very, very light, and then a bit of vanilla and orange kind of rounding it in.
Quick shout out to Naomi Kate, who comments, the kids are asleep, about to pour a glass of this now, can't wait. I feel like Naomi Kate might have some inside running on these bottles if you've already got one in your hands.
Yeah, we opened up a very small pre-sale because we were getting a lot of interest in it, and Lindsay's from Craft Drinks Market system seems to ship incredibly quickly.
Yeah,
so some people have already got it, which is really
beautiful.
Yeah. So for us, it takes us about
it's flawless.
couriers won't come out to us. We have to drive 2 suburbs over to get to a post office. So yeah, that was just a perfect way to kind of.
So if you want booze
run that
quickly,
deal.
Through Lindsay.
Yeah.
Colby says that, again, taking a pot at Crafty, that Todd's hat is better than yours. I think it's fair to say that Todd probably works harder at the distillery as well.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, don't know. Yeah.
Work hard.
Naomi got her bottle at 7 a.m. this morning. That is excellent. And James Christopher says, loving the New South Wales teamwork, which I think we can agree on, which leads into, well, my next question was going to be sort of directed to you, Crafty.
Yeah.
Obviously, what you've done and where you've come from someone who was just passionate about the concept of whiskey into the independent bottling of craft works into, what we're going to see as the product of your own distillery. It's been such a great journey and such a personal journey, and Just Derek was such a big part of that for you. Do you maybe want to talk a little bit about that, and also how you feel about this particular product in the, stage 2 of that Just Derek journey?
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So Just Derek was my first 500ml bottle release, and it was my first cask that I laid. And the reason it's called Just Derek is because Derek was a good mate of mine in the early 2000s who was passionate, absolutely passionate about whiskey. So this is early 2000s, and I hated whiskey. I hated it with an absolute passion. It just didn't matter what he did. Put a glass in front of me, and I was like, no, just don't like it. And then, unfortunately, in 2007, he passed away, had a massive coronary. And when he passed away, his family thought that I loved whiskey. So all his bottles that he had at home, his private collection, it was about 7 or 8, they gave them to me and said, enjoy. And it was like, wow, okay, thank you, appreciate it. Then one night, a few months later, I lined them all up and I was tasting them one at a time. And it was the first moment that I went, shit, there's more to this whiskey than meets the eye. These are all different. So he basically put me on my journey. I'm quite compulsive in nature. So
really?
Yeah. So from there, I just started the journey. But the reality is, if Derek was alive now, it would not be called the Craftworks Distillery. It would be called Derek Taylor Distillery, and I would be the Todd working in the back. That's what it would be. So that's the sort of backstory. So the first release, Just Derek, was paying tribute to Derek and just how much he, started me off on the road, on the journey. As far as the cask and where it is now and where it goes, that's something which really excites me. Is wood, working with wood, and where does the wood go from there? And this is a classic case. So now it's become a gin cask. So it's got a story of gin. It's got a story of the friendship that I have with Nick and Ally. The previous iteration of it was a whiskey cask. Previous to that, it was a sherry cask. It was a 40-year-old McWilliams, New South Wales sherry cask. So it goes all the way back to there. Where it goes from here, I think it'll stay in gin for a little bit, perhaps. And then we'll see. I mean, it may end up in Bunnings cut in half. Who knows down the track? It'll still be part of the story, though. So yeah. And I, as I said, I love working with wood. So another good example is Lagercat, which is one of my other casks. I've given it to a brewer mate of mine who's done a chopped cherry stout, which is amazing. And so when he finishes with it, I get it back. So I go back in. So that wood, originally American oak, so it's come from America, went to Scotland, Lagavulin, at least 50 years, came to Australia, was then picked up by a winemaker, turned into a muscat cask. The muscat cask I got hold of through Tassie Cask Company. They turned it into a whiskey cask. I made whiskey out of it. It's now gone to a brewer. He's making a chopped cherry stout. I get it back. That's just layer up and layer up and layer up and layer of complexity in my mind. So, yeah, short answer.
That's why we love you, mate. One thing that I didn't mention about this, and if I did post a link to the details on our website so people can look at the specs a little bit more, but this is at 47%. And I love that because we're in smaller bottles, but haven't compromised on the structure. And I think the first time I ever sat down with Ally, yourself, and Nick, 2-3 years ago at a bar week, sitting out the back there, brought the gin in, and we were talking about pricing and how that works. Yeah. And one of the things I loved was it was at 44%, and that was non-negotiable. It was like we were priced where we need to, but that is, we're not going to sacrifice any quality of the product for that. Yeah. And I think sort of a two-parter. Like I love the structure and the breadth, and I think it helps that spice and that sort of menthol feel on the palate. We're drinking this neat, but like, how else would you drink it as well? And why did 47 seem to be the right fit?
Trade secret? No.
Yeah,
it's literally what we do with like almost everything, where we have like bottles at different increments, and then at the end of the week, whichever one's the lowest just kind of works. But we
That's
like
a full
to
trade secret there.
Oh yeah,
we stole that from another Australian distiller.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we work on that angle basically. We like to drink our spirits straight, and we always have. So when it came to gin, we wanted to create something that you could enjoy neat as well, and so this was no exception to that. It was just something that you have neat first, and then if you need to have it in a cocktail, then go for it.
At 47,
yeah.
I think it actually went in the barrel a little bit higher, but
yeah.
At that ABV, the orange, there was something really cool going on with the orange and the smoke and the juniper, and that was where its optimum flavor was. So that's where we put it in at, and then when we pulled it out of the cask, it was a bit higher. It was up in close to 50. And when we pulled it back, that flavor profile was still holding in there of that sort of nice bit of smoke, and orange. So that was sort of why we chose that alcohol percentage, was that's where those flavors were coming in the best.
Yeah.
What about the residue that's left in the barrel, Nick?
It's just fucking amazing. You only get to try that if you come to Karu.
Yeah, if you come to Karu and you come to the Barrel House,
we'll have to send some. We'll split it in half. If you come to Karu or Crafty, you get to try it.
Yeah.
So, like we said, we did a R&D. We did like 5 liters or so of an R&D. Put it in the cask for a few months and pulled it out, tried it, rejigged it, then distilled the whole 100 liters, put it in the cask.
And then Crafty arrived. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. And then we had this sort of 3 liters at this stage left over. And then December came, because we were going to release this in December, I think.
Yeah, it was.
December came, and instead of releasing it, we pulled it out of the cask because it was ready, and evacuated the distillery with our rum, all our gin, and the barrel-aged gin. So over Christmas time, this cask spent
on our spare bed.
Yeah, it spent Christmas time on our spare bed. And we put that spirit from the original run back in it to keep it hydrated. That stayed in until a month ago.
Then it went back to my joint.
Yeah, it went to yours, and then it came back, and then we have distilled it again and put another lot in. So we've got about 700 ml left at its 60%, and it's just like it's a year old.
Yeah,
it's a year old barrel aged gin. It's incredible.
Mental. It's like it's really dark in color too, like really dark.
But it's too much like a whiskey. You wouldn't even think it's a gin. Like it's too oaked. But yeah.
A whiskey gin. That's what it is. A whiskey gin.
Whiskin.
Quick
shout out to Johnny Edwards down in Tassie's tuning in, and Lucas Catterall, and as you guys I'm sure know, and funnily enough, Shane Casey as well from Bricks, who almost have rum soon as well, which is very, very exciting. But a quick shout out to Lucas Catterall, who I think's got us on the phone on the headphones. Gotta love listening to this out doing deliveries on a Friday night, which obviously distiller's work is never done.
Yeah,
never.
And I honestly don't know why you didn't just do my job, which is let other people do all the hard work, and you just stand in the front of a wall filled with great booze and take all the glory.
Scotty,
you were close in your idea.
Firsthand how rubbish we are at sales. So there you go.
You're close, but this was the correct job you should have been doing. This is the good one.
Hey, Scotty, let me tell you a quick story about delivery. So yesterday I did a delivery. I went to Dulce's, and
nice.
I had Andrea's Honda Jazz, and I thought I'll slap a magnetic Craftworks logo on the bonnet, and that way it's a work vehicle. That's cool. So I parked in a loading zone to do my delivery.
Nope.
Yeah, well, I learned they don't accept sedans, and I got slapped with a $200 bloody fine.
Oh.
I've
I
actually
pointed out the magnetic sign. I said, "Look, I've got a magnetic sign."
felt like once there was for one of the a whiskey fair distillers dinner about 5 years ago. We did it on the back here, so we need to like get some catering in for just plates and cutlery and all that sort of stuff. And my friend and I got fined while I was running boxes of plates from the lane down here into the store while she was in the car.
Yeah.
So it's a thing. And yeah, Shane does a quick hey-o. We're about to hand down some rabbit holes and talk about Rowish, which I love and I'm very excited to do. Before we do that, I just want to quickly remind everyone the barrel-aged gin will be available now at Craft Drinks Market website. If you go to the Karu website, you can find it there. There's 230 bottles of batch one. There's also a couple at the Oak Barrel, if you feel so inclined. About $85 for Oak Barrel members and on the Craft Drinks website. We're talking batch one. Does that mean that there is a batch two in the works?
We got 1,000 labels.
Yeah, so we had to have one to make it cost effective.
Well, we weren't sure how good Crafty was at putting the labels on, so
we put him to work. Yeah.
Oh, you'd love to see it. You'd love to see it.
There is a batch two, but it just depends on if the oak and if the barrel and the spirit work,
or if the aliens that are coming next in 2020 come and abduct it. So yeah.
I believe in spirits.
Yeah.
I do.
There is also another barrel which is sort of kicking around Karu, and that may become a backstop, or it may become something else. Who knows in the future?
It'll take us a year to get going, given our current.
There is quite a collaborative Bricks staff party happening in the Facebook chat at the moment, which is great. And we look forward to, very excited, Bricks Rum is about to be of age.
Yes!
Very, very soon, which we're all very, very excited about. Yeah. I think every time we taste Bricks White, it gets better and better and better. So very good things happening from there. Quick question, and Crafty, you can be involved in this answer as well if you want, but it's sort of a little bit guided to the Karu team. A lot of us know Crafty, whether you've seen him at a whiskey fair, a whiskey show, a whiskey live, whatever it is, a whiskey festival, or had a chat over Facebook. But Nick and Ally, what's it actually like to be in a distillery with Crafty? For like an extended period of time.
See if I can some photos.
We took a photo of it. Yeah. So there's a lot of excitement. Yeah.
A lot of creativity.
There's no dull moments ever.
So this is I don't know how well you can see this.
Not at all.
Quite poorly. I know the Nirvana t-shirt must be Ally.
This is Crafty bottling.
Oh, yeah.
Taking a phone call while I'm doing all the hard work.
I had a business to run. I had to answer the phone.
Yeah. And I guess
it's good fun.
No, it's good. There's endless banter. Really, it's a good dynamic. Even though things get done a little slower, it's really fun.
And the second part of this two-part question is directed at Crafty. Yeah. What's it like to work with the young rock stars of the Australian gin scene?
Where are they?
They are rock stars. They are.
I'm sorry that the Zoom writer isn't as good as you normally, expected to, but you get your salmon and lobster at the next one, I promise.
No, they're awesome. They're creative. They're technical. They're passionate. They're innovative. They're friendly. They're open. They're humble. It's great. And it's funny, they love isolation. So where Karu Distillery is quite isolated. And a few weeks ago, they came up to my shed and they stayed 10 k's away from the shed. And I went to go and pick them up to bring them back to the shed so we could have a creative session. And I go there, and it's a place called what is it? Eagle's Lair? No,
Yeah, Eagle's Nest.
Yeah.
Eagle's Nest.
Yeah.
It is in the middle of nowhere. And I go, guys, you work in the middle of nowhere and you come on holiday and you go to the middle of nowhere. You must stay home.
Yeah.
So they love their isolation, and I think it aids their creativity, to be honest. I really do.
It does. It really does.
Just a couple of quick updates from the Facebook. Yes, the Parramatta vs Penrith Rugby League game is kicking off, and yes, we will be keeping you updated with live scores unless Penrith get ahead, in which case we will ignore the fact. But Shane, Casey has a very good idea for extra labels, which is for patching barrel leaks.
The glue would worth a treat, yeah.
Yeah. Not the worst idea I've ever heard. So this is obviously super exciting. I guess, there's not a lot of it, 230 bottles. That's going to go pretty quickly. What's next? What's upcoming? Obviously, like Nick and Ally, you've got the two gins. Crafty, you're a little bit more, each release is a little bit different from the independent bottling line. But like from both of you, what does the rest of this god awful year look like for you guys?
Really good.
Yeah, really good.
Crafty's whiskey is fucking amazing.
It's really delicious. Yeah, it's really good. He comes over and we have the samples that come out of the Anton Par, and it's really good.
I might have tried in the delivery of some barrel aged gin yesterday. Might have tried a bit of a sample, and I do think it should have come in an SPC Peaches tinned tin, because there was a lot of tropical fruit, a lot of things you look for in certain Scotch.
Yeah.
Oh
no. Got it?
I can see Crafty.
Left on our own. This is bad.
To our own devices.
We're
What
still
happens?
Censorship. Where'd he go?
See, this is what happens the other part of 2020. Scott gets abducted by aliens.
All right.
Sorry, spoiler alert, but
oh, that's terrible. That was going really well.
I think we're still on.
Oh, are we? Oh. We've got everyone else. We just haven't got Scotty.
I'm going to try to see if I can add him back in.
Distilleries.
There he is.
There you go. Nope, we lost him.
Oh, we had him for like.
There he is. Are you back?
I'm back. Are you guys back?
Yeah, we're all good. Don't touch anything.
I think that was my fault.
Okay, cool.
Go back, Scotty. You were raving about Craftworks whiskey. Just take it from there, will you?
So what was I raving about?
I think.
At what point did I fade into the wall? Yeah. Yes. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so a lot of things that I go looking for in certain Scottish distilleries I found on the nose, but from some of the car samples that I tried earlier, like across the last couple of years, I found on the palate. But no, quite excited about that first release of Capity distilled Craftworks whiskey.
Yeah. That's coming September 1, so I put a line in the sand for that. And it's actually not going to be a single cask. It's a vatting of 3 casks, because I've been playing around with vatting and learning, which is really interesting. It's a different level than single cask. And then I've also got the next independent bottling release, Blue 01, which will be in July, and then possibly one more IB later in the year, and that's it.
While I was gone, there was a bit of chat. People yelling at James was yelling for Ally to take over. David was yelling for Crafty to take over. Unfortunately for everyone, I've come back. But I will, Shane, take your suggestion, which is a shot for every minute that Scott is gone. So I feel like that was 30 seconds, round up to a minute. Let me find something.
Yeah.
We can find something. Also, I've got a bit of soda water down here. They wouldn't mind mixing with a barrel-aged gin at some point to see if that works.
We can do that.
But a little bit of, definitely not rare, definitely not expensive Armagnac. To everyone watching and to the 3 legends I have here, cheers. Again, we've done this about 3 or 4 times tonight before we even went live. That's all right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hold hard your breath and mend up your spirits, as Shakespeare once said.
Live long and prosper. Oh, that will hurt.
Thank you, Shane, for that suggestion. Yeah, so September 1.
Yeah, September 1, mate. I put a line in the sand, which is good because now I've got a date to work to. And I'm working on creative as far as label design right now, which is going to be totally different to independent bottling because it's, Craftworks distillery release, which is different than independent bottling. And I want it to have a different look and tie into the 5-year journey that I've been on with this whiskey obsession, perhaps.
Joshua David is pushing us on here, thinking that we should all be drinking lightning at this point in time.
Not a bad idea.
That's
Not a bad, bloody good idea. I like that, Joshua. I reckon he'll go places, that bloke. I reckon he's got some good ideas. Like for Crafty, what is like the ongoing Craftworks whiskey scene like release look like? Obviously, the independent bottlings have all been single casks, one of different names, different branding, all different sorts of things. When we see, like, maybe not the first release or the first couple of releases, but in a year's time, in 2 years' time, will you have a consistent release, or will you work in batches like a Flurio, or you always do single cask? What's the vision for the Capity Craftworks whiskey?
That is a really interesting question, because one of the things that has come out of COVID is I've spent a fair bit of time sampling barrels and starting to taste early barrels and older barrels, and I'm starting to identify very strongly a Craftworks DNA spirit, which is really exciting to me, because I thought with the type of casks that I've been going into, they could dominate and the spirit won't shine as much, and it'd be pretty hard to identify what sort of whiskey it is. But I am seeing you can taste a young barrel, you can taste a barrel that's 6 months old, it could be a PX barrel, or you could taste what's called a super cask, which is 2 years old, 3 years old, and the Craftworks flavour is there. So that's exciting for me. A good mate of mine, Marty from Riverbourne, the kid, grumpy old man on the hill.
The original grumpy old man on the hill.
Original grumpy old man on the hill. He said to me from day one, he said, "What's going to be your flavour profile?" And I said, I don't know, because I'm still at a very early stage and I'm exploring different casks and seeing what works. But I'm starting to get some clarity now. So I think, the IB is going to continue for the next couple of years. I've got enough casks, and I'll add to that. I don't intend to stop IB. I'd like to do some more IBs. But I'm going to be releasing fairly big flavoured casks. And the Craftworks whiskey is going to be quite full flavoured whiskey. It's not going to be a light expression. And yeah, it's not going to be for everyone. That's for sure. But I'm really excited I'm building young complex whiskies, and it's almost like a 2.5 year experiment, tasting things now and going, wow, I started with the stout recipe on my mash bill, and now I'm tasting it matured and tasting it young, and I can see, I'm going the road I wanted to go, which is really exciting for me.
Well, they do say that like a dog looks like their owner, and maybe a whiskey looks like their distiller. So young and complex, that sort of makes sense for you, Crafty.
It's who I hang around with.
Yeah.
So what does rage mean then? Young and bitey and angry?
Oh, just too much Pinot Noir. Too much Pinot Noir in a rage. You love to see it.
The next one's called Blue 01. So work that one out. And when you see the label on that, that's a fun one, that one.
It's a fun label. It is.
It's a fun label. It's a fun whiskey. Actually, it's a challenging whiskey, that one, to be honest.
Yeah.
I gave it to a fellow distiller, not you guys, but I gave it to someone else, and he goes, "It's peated. I don't like peated whiskey." And I said, "No, it's not peated. There is no peat in that at all." And he swore black and blue it was peat, and it wasn't. And what it was is just barrel char, and it's just showing what flavors you can pull from a barrel char. And you and I talked about this yesterday, Scotty, toasting and barrel char. It's exciting.
They're very different things.
Yeah, two totally different things. Exactly.
Quick question coming from the audience. Shane Casey, who might know a little bit about distilling himself. Does young just refer to the actual age, or does it refer to a livelier, hotter spirit?
No, I wouldn't say hotter. I definitely wouldn't say hotter. I don't. People who taste my whiskey say it doesn't burn, so that's always a good thing. So it's not hot, but I heard a term the other day which I like, bright. It's got some vibrancy to it, and it's got layers up and layers up and layers, and that's what I like. Is when you taste the whiskey and it's multi-dimensional. It takes you on a journey. And one whiskey I remember clearly, it was an Indian whiskey, an Amaret whiskey, and you drank it and it was like, oh, I'm getting this, no, I'm getting that, and I'm getting this, and I'm getting that. I'm not like that, but I like to have those different notes coming through at different levels.
Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, it's quite an exciting time. Something that I found here at the Oak Barrel, certain bottle stores that are in more suburban areas absolutely flew during lockdown periods. I think out of a panic response to the fear that bottle stores might close. Being a little bit more premium, we struggled a bit and then sort of fought it back. But that luxury spend has sort of been missing a little bit, and it started to come back. And what's exciting me is all the new releases that are coming out. Obviously, we've had just earlier this week, Karu have done their first, and I'm branding. Anyone who wants to send me free hoodies, I will happily wear them and rep them on live streams.
That was the peated one, was it, Scotty?
The first peated cask. We've had the collaboration between Flurio and Blackgate. There's a new distillery releasing a new whiskey in Tasmania every 30 seconds at the moment. That I used to be across all the distilleries in Tasmania, but apparently I'm not, because there are people releasing whiskey that I've never heard of before. But something I know that all of us are very excited about is Backwoods. Sorry.
Yeah.
Backwood from Lee and Bree Atwood.
Lee and Bree. Are they on today?
No, they're not. But I just want to say on the record again, Lee and Bree Atwood started a series called Backwoods. I'm sorry, too hard.
Say that
way too hard.
times really fast.
Yeah, it's sober. You can't do it any other way. But they're going to release very, very soon. There's certain things from other New South Wales distilleries. So it's actually quite an exciting time for that sort of middle sphere of distilleries that started up maybe like sort of 3 to 5 or 6 years ago, who are maybe doing their coming to market for the first time, or releasing some of these projects they've been working on for a little while. From a pure whiskey point of view, obviously other spirits, there's a lot of other stuff, but I think it's quite exciting.
What about rum?
Yeah, what about rum?
Well, I'm getting to that point. And we segue straight into there because I know obviously we've mentioned bricks a couple of times. There's a few other experiments going around. I grabbed another couple of Blackgate's rums, but the other week. But do you want to talk a little bit about Grossvale rum, which is something having spent a little bit of time in Grossvale myself, I'm very excited about the concept of rum from Grossvale.
Well, this is
need a better name though, the Grossvale rum.
No, it's got to be called. Come on, call it Grossvale rum.
It's
GVR.
We're in the Devil's Wilderness.
Yeah.
This is the only rum in Australia that's spent some time on a truck driving away from a fire. Lived for a month in a crappy garage in a suburban town.
Was watched by police for a couple of months.
And then driven back again. So it's going to have a very interesting, that's going to show through.
Yeah,
very interesting flavor profile on that one. No, it's been good. We've been really refining our process, getting everything down pat and been just putting casks down. It's been
we had to we ran out of space. It's not hard to run out of space at our distillery because it's tiny, but we had to construct a barrel room in isolation to be and get it approved by the ATO so we could keep on producing rum, which is first world problem.
So it's been good. We've sort of where our love for rum, it started when we did a class with Richard Seal, and from there it was just sort of this really Like
The greatest accent of all time.
Yeah.
Like English, but then a little bit of Barbados.
Yeah.
So when he says like words like distillation,
Yeah.
fermentation.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
weird because he was like he was like Black Book's Mr. Black of rum distillation.
Black, yeah.
Bernard Black of like rum
Yeah, he
distillation. It was
totally
so
is.
weird, and I think I told him that, and he was not very impressed.
Yeah. But
Say
sorry,
hello.
Nick, that's where the fire was lit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And then afterwards, and then just knuckled down and stuff like that. And then we also got some really amazing virtual tastings from
The plantation one was
Plantation as
fantastic.
well. Just the differences in
Yeah.
like every single one was just incredible.
The best thing about rum is you've just got all this interesting, like you got so much going in fermentation, and like,
Yeah.
that's where like a big chunk of your flavor profile comes in.
from, and there's so many like different factors. Like it,
Australian rum hasn't started yet, really. Like
besides from bricks.
no, but they're about to release, and they're going to
Yeah.
start. Like that's the
That's
beginning.
where it
like
gets really exciting.
that wide of theirs.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's amazing.
I
So-
don't say it on camera, but there was
Oh,
one that I
wow,
was like
shit.
really, really, really loved, which will be coming out hopefully soon because I need it.
So the Karu distillery then, who I know as a gin distillery, who Sydney knows as a gin distillery, is that your like soul aged spirit, endeavor? Are you now like in 5 years' time? Are you a gin and rum distillery, or is like where does?
Yeah,
is
that's sort of the direction.
Just
No?
kind of, sort of. I don't know. I don't like to like just really be branded as like as anything because
True.
it's like you can have like a distillery or you can have your particular distillery, and so like we're pretty.
The alarm's about to go off, so I'm just going to give 2 seconds. I'll be back. Keep talking.
Yeah, no worries. So so we originally we started out just loving whiskey, and so we ordered a whiskey still from Tasmania, and we still haven't made whiskey. We're probably not going to for like another 10 years. And then got onto the bandwagon of what we loved about gin, because again, we didn't like gin at first, and it just turns out our palates just went up to London Dry. And so it was experimenting with that and then becoming totally infatuated with it and having an affinity, if you will, for gin. And then as well, like rum, we didn't really know that much about until we started to get curious and explore that. It wasn't even on the horizon. And then we just started exploring that, and we were just like, this is the best thing ever. Like, it's the best. And
It's pretty bloody good. Pretty bloody good.
Really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. I could go on forever about how much I love it, but it's I don't want to like shut off having such a love for other spirits quite so much as I have for those two. So it's just keeping your doors kind of open, and if you want to try something and figure it out and get the science and of flavor down packed, and you love it and you're proud of it, I don't want to like disregard it as being an option.
Would it be fair to say that in terms of white spirits sitting in tank and aged spirits sitting in barrels at Karu at the moment, gin and rum are the predominant ones?
Yeah. We've
definitely.
got we've got some really cool liqueurs on the way, Australian gin liqueur, but really everything is gin and rum.
Yeah.
And rum's kind of been, during COVID, it's kind of been our main sort of focus because it means we get to stay at the shed. So so that one's, so that's it.
Yeah. Shane Casey does jump in with the comment of dynamic aging. A lot of distilleries around the world have been thinking about how they can speed up aging and do a little bit of things. And
we did it.
Ripping up a distillery and putting on the back of a ute is a pretty good way.
Yeah. We took photos of it as well, and I found a leak in one of the barrels when we were moving, so I had to like makeshift fix it straight away with like a
extra
hammer.
labels. Extra labels.
I didn't have the labels at that stage.
Could have used all those gin labels.
But like fixed it with a toothpick and a hammer. So yeah, that's better than nothing.
Better than me. I just would have used sticky tape.
Yeah.
But as you say, you've been saying it for a few years now, but I think you're absolutely right. There's a rum naissance coming.
Oh yeah.
It's slower than expected, but it's coming. I personally have a fascination with rum as well. And it actually started in Adelaide Spirits Conference a few years ago with meeting a guy called Rum Geek from Europe. And he did a masterclass on rum and took us through it. And in the back of my mind, I always thought it'd be cool to have a crack at making rum. And I remember what he said, and he stood in front of the group and he was closing his eyes. He had a glass and he was just nosing away before the masterclass started. And he said, "You guys in Australia, you've got sugarcane, you've got climate, and you've got barrels. You guys should just make dirty, dirty, dirty rum, and you'll be all right." And he's right. I mean, there's so much you can do with rum from an Australian perspective. You know, with wine casks and you know our climate and everything. It's
and you've got
crack at rum. I've done a rum. Well, I've done a low wine rum. I've started. I've put my.
That's a cute.
My black hole in there. What was that? I missed that.
Nothing.
Ally.
Rum.
Harder than making whiskey.
One of the most amazing things about rum is, like I was saying before, is you got all these flavors coming through fermentation, and you've got different barrel aging. And the best thing is we're going to start getting a lot more Australian craft rum, but they're going to be uniquely different. Yeah. And that's going to be like the absolute best part. Yeah. Like there is so much from what we've tasted from other distilleries in Australia. There's just so much good rum coming. And they've got some really good whites. Hopefully our laws change where you don't have to age it and strip it back, because that's just insane. But anyway, this is hyper aging rum. Sorry, we'll get there. That's how we hyper age now. That's it. Yep.
You can see all
the Australian way.
I want to do a quick shout out again to Dave Pearce, who comments on saying, speaking to you two teams in Karu and Craftworks, love the passion and excitement for your craft. And I think anyone that spent any time with the Karu team or with Crafty is in no doubt or the passion and excitement about what they're doing. But it's actually quite an interesting point. I like talking about like dynamic aging and bushfires. Is I've never started a distillery because I'm not insane, obviously. Where obviously you guys are.
You just don't like isolation.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that when you start a distillery and build it, there's a lot of hoops to jump through in terms of like planning and making sure everything's bolted down and near sinks and near waters, near all this sort of things and drainage. They're not designed to be ripped up quickly and moved.
No.
So in the case of January 2020, when all of a sudden you need to rip up barrel warehouses and everything that's not bolted down and move it, how does that work? And I know like Crafty, you had fires coming from both angles, like sort of getting in on you at one point, and Nick and Ally, you had it sort of coming up the valley there or coming down the mountain. Like do you call the ATO and be like, camera phone, what do I do now type thing, or like what is that insanity? How does that work?
I called the oh sorry, Crafty, do you want to go?
You go.
I called the ATO on Monday before Christmas and rang them up and said, we're probably going to be evacuating our distillery on Christmas when you guys are shut. What do we need to do? They gave us approval to take it to an unbonded warehouse for the duration of the crisis, and obviously report back when everything went back in. They did that within a day. That was fine. The ATO was incredibly helpful. So that side of it was not very stressful. We basically just had it prepped and ready to go. Given the nature of that fire, that was a very, very different situation to what a normal sort of bushfire is. This was a very
fire.
Yeah. It was
the Gospers Mountain.
Yeah.
The Gospers Mountain. Basically, the day it jumped into like the Gross Valley and started heading up, because we're on a ridge line and we're at the base of the Blue Mountains National Park. Like we literally walk into Blue Mountains National Park every day, and we've got nothing but we had nothing but like between us was like nothing bush.
And fuel.
And we got a lot of messages from people when it hit Bilpin being like, you guys got to take this on really seriously. So we pulled, at that stage, we had 4 casks of rum. We had that sitting on a truck ready for evacuation. And we had the forklift next to the still, only because it's all insured, but it just takes like 2 years to get another one.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just had everything out ready to go in case it happened. So
and also take into consideration that like people are frantic because it's one road in, one road out where we are, and in any other kind of suburb close to us. So people are like desperate and they're crazy to kind of get out and be safe. And so as soon as it leaves your distillery, it's like it's a really serious thing.
It's so scary.
And you can't trust other people's driving. So yeah, for that reason, it was really scary.
So we sort of pulled it a little bit early when the evacuation came in for the suburb over from us, and we pulled it because we were more concerned about like it was like on catastrophic days, like there was just trees and chunks of like ash falling from the sky. Yeah. So we just kind of we pulled it a little bit early because we didn't trust the people on the road. That was sort of the biggest reason for pulling it was if we had to evacuate in a rush, like because the people were driving crazy every day and evacuation came in. And of course you would. So that was sort of one of the big reasons we pulled it. Yeah. And we had a warning saying like the distillery, the app just basically said your whole thing is red and
it's going to be burnt in like a matter of an hour if it gets real, like if the wind picks up.
Such a tough
and that was every
it.
single day was like, okay, you have like if things get bad, you have an hour. And then it's gone.
That's pretty boring.
Yeah, it was really boring.
And it's one of those things about fires, they climb better than they descend. So being on a ridge is not always the best thing. Yeah. Someone who we've mentioned a couple of times in this live stream is on the chat there saying, wake up, Crafty. That comes from a Todd Pointer, who might be the Todd, the official Todd. And I reckon one thing that probably woke you, Crafty, up a couple of times was looking at your fire app in January and seeing that Kapiti is quite surrounded. I mean, what was it like for you?
It was a little bit different than Ally and Nick's experience. For me, it started in November with fires, with the Gospers Mountain fire, and just impacting business, impacting tourism, and the fire just creeping and getting closer and closer. In December, we had 2 big fires. We had the Gospers Mountain fire and we had the Palmer's Oakey fire. And the Palmer's Oakey was to the west. The fire, the Gospers Mountain was in the valley. So I'm on a ridge. Kapiti's on the ridge of the Kapiti Valley. So it was creeping through the valley. So it was coming east. Then basically 3 fronts. And one stage they closed the roads. And so I'd never experienced fire, so I had no idea. And I stayed and I prepared and I second guessed myself all through December and January. You know, do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? I was very fortunate. I had friends in the local RFS. The captain of the RFS station is in Kapiti, and where I am is the back of the Kapiti Royal Hotel. So that was going to be defended at all costs. So I felt reasonably safe, but it was tough because to pull the barrels, the concern was the moment I pulled barrels, that impacts insurance. You have to get special insurance, which would have been hard to get at that time. And barrels don't like to be moved, particularly in summer when they're sweating like mad. You know, just looking at them will make them sweat more and leak. So you don't want to move them. So it was a really, really stressful time. We came very, very close. We were on ember attack. Luckily, the winds were blowing the other direction this particular day, and I didn't have to pull anything. The thing that people, I now know, and Nick and Ally would know, is we're not that far off another fire season. And with COVID and everything else that's been happened and resources being diverted and that, who knows what's going to happen next year. So I think it comes down to individually how we're prepared. I think Nick and Ally, myself and others will have a completely different outlook on these potential fires and risks to our business.
Yeah.
Yep, agreed. I have to say a big shout out to the RFS.
They came out to us on Christmas Day and they started clearing a lot of brake lines and stuff like that, and like just really helping us out.
The work that those guys, but we because we're right near the RAF base, and every day, bombers flying over us. Christmas Day behind us, they went up the ridge line behind us, hiked up through. I've hiked through our bush behind us. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
They hiked up through, put containment lines all through there on Christmas and Boxing Day instead of seeing their family. These are volunteers. Like it's huge.
It's really amazing.
We passed the fiery stations every day as Crafty would have and everyone else would have, and there was just so many people out, so much support. Like, can't thank our RFS enough.
And there are also a lot of people like in the alcohol industry that also volunteer for RFS, and they gave us a lot of heads up and stuff like that, and they were just an absolute godsend. So thank you.
Quite a bit of love for the passion that you guys are showing, but also for the RFS on the Facebook stream there. And I think the saying has never been truer that not all heroes wear capes, but most of them do work for the RFS.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Look, I think at the coming out of that, you guys were relatively lucky in the end to not get over the top. There's a lot of wineries that we work here with the Oak Barrel that got completely wiped out, and you don't know where that's going to do. A lot of vintages for wine has been written off every day pretty much. We're hearing through Joey, who looks after LA Wine. It's like another winemaker that one particular bottle that we've loved for 20 years. There's not going to be a 2020 edition of it and that sort of stuff. So that's the thing, which sort of leads me to my next point is that, again, last time we were all in a room, we were imploring people, and the Oak Barrel, a whole rest of the year was going to be, how can we let's get out to these regional areas and let's do it. And then obviously things happen. So I know Crafty has the pub and has got a cellar door when you're there, but like from both of you guys, when it's safe to go out and on weekends and that sort of thing, can we come and visit?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll go first because I'm really excited about this.
And that's what we love about you.
Yeah. So international tourism is pretty well dead in the water right now, and people going overseas for holidays. So regional tourism is starting to climb, and it's going to go ballistic. It really is. So places like Caperty, where I am, we can capitalise. We're on the Castlereagh Highway, and there's been a few changes at the pub. And so one of the great things about it is I'm very, very good friends with the owners of the pub. We're going to be working a lot closer together. So effectively, the pub will be Craftworks cellar door when I'm not there. So you'll be able to do full tastings. I'm going to pull out some museum stock so I can have a fully stocked Craftworks bar. We'll do cocktails with eau de vie and other things. So it's a next level thing for me from a cellar door. It also means I can engage more with the local tourism centres of Lithgow and Mudgee and elsewhere. So it's very exciting. I see some really good opportunities from a tourism perspective. And Nick and Ally, your position on tourism?
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about ours. We're 2.5 years in the wait. We've had a very interesting long problem with a certain department that begins with C and ends with L, which is a very common problem with a lot of distilleries, wineries and breweries in Australia, but we won't go down that road. When we get up and going, so we're allowed visitors now. We'd love to anyone to come out if they want to come out.
But bear in mind it's a workspace, but it's a fun workspace.
But when we get our tasting room up, hopefully towards the end of this year, I say that every year, it's going to be a very big showcase of what our area has. We've got amazing food and amazing booze in our local area, in the Hawkesbury and in the Blue Mountains. And the other thing we're going to be showcasing is a lot of our, like Ally and I, through our entire journey of getting to releasing our product, a lot of distilleries helped us. So we really want to showcase those on our bar, and we've got
and tell their stories and kind of extend like what the Australian craft industry is about in that regard through taste, flavor, and generosity.
Yeah.
So between, like, say from now to the end of the year, and obviously we had a long weekend last weekend, which people were starting to get out. Is this a call ahead thing, or, you know, do you want just people rocking up, knocking on your front door? Like, how do people sort of get in touch with you?
For us, just shoot us a message, call us, email, message, whichever way, and just say, I want to come up and visit, because we're still stuck in the red tape of New South Wales. But once, we love visitors, so all you got to do is just shoot us a message, call. It can be on the day, it's fine.
A couple of good comments from. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm the same. I'm down my shed each week, milling, brewing, distilling. But the pub's closed right now, so once everything starts to open up, so the best idea to contact me again, like Nick and Ally said, just email, message, smoke screen, whatever. I'll respond.
Yeah, which leads into what I was just about to say there, because Chris Dracos has got a couple of good comments there. In terms of like the fires, and Adelaide Hills has been hit so hard, really feel for them. And yeah, a lot of wineries that we worked with and a lot of vineyards that don't exist anymore down Adelaide Hills. So Vinterloper comes to mind immediately as a very good friend of ours who makes excellent wines. But Chris is also planning a family and in-laws trip to Mudgee soon, which why would you go to anywhere in the world but the greater Central West? Because there's nothing anywhere else in the world that, you know, the Central West doesn't have. So expect a message, because there might be a little bit of a pullover for a bit of a VIP experience. Crafty, can you offer Chris the VIP experience?
I think that can be on offer, and I think I can talk to my friends at Debo Repair and Ralston Winery. I think we can get them in there, and Peter Van Gent Winery in Mudgee. I'm sure we can get a little tour through there as well. And of course, Nathan Baker Williams.
Baker Williams.
He's got his doors open, and Blackgate's not all that far from Mudgee. It's only an hour.
Not at all, and it's worth that extra little bit.
Absolutely.
And by the time you get to Dubbo, have a few cocktails at the establishment bar and go stay at the Blue Gum Motel.
Yes.
4-star accommodation. The only time in my life I've had a pillow menu is in Dubbo. Pull your socks up, Sydney. Pull them up. I didn't know what to do with it.
Was it printed on the pillowcase?
No. They when I checked in, they were like, "Oh, here's your breakfast menu if you want any room service, all this sort of stuff, and here's your pillow menu." I was like, "Sorry, what?"
What? Pillow menu?
It was like, yes, I will have pillow. Tick, yes, please. I was like, no, but like, what shape, what size, how firm, hard? It was like,
whoa. I've
been on this planet for a few decades, and like, just pillows are pillows, right? Like, they're just there, just figure them out.
Is it a pillow? Is it a cushion? Like, what's the? Yeah.
Sydney hospitality, mate. Take a few leaves out of the Dubbo playbook. Yeah. Chris Dracos is salivating already, so I reckon, Crafty, you might need to have those bottles open by the time he gets there.
I'll be there.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know where Chris is based, but if he's based in Sydney, I think Chris is doing the first half of the trip and then hand passing that one to the in-laws to drive the second half of the trip to Mudgee after visiting Kapiti. Chris Fletcher says, well said, Scotty. When are you coming back to Dubbo? Booked into the establishment tomorrow night. I actually had a very good chat with the establishment bar yesterday to sort of talk about, coming out. I'm just glad that those guys are open again. It's such a great town. There's so much potential there. So, yeah, really, really looking forward. But hopefully there's a few things we can announce in the near future, whether it's this year or next year. Time will tell. But, yeah, looking forward to it. And Chris is in Sydney. And yes, the missus, who you might need to buy a bottle of Craftworks whiskey for her at the distillery, because she's going to want to drink it after you get to Mudgee, because I think she's been dobbed in for the second half of that trip, which is, and if she doesn't agree to it, it's like, well, no, but Crafty already agreed to it. So just, you got to look back at the live stream, and go for it.
We have
the seat right there.
Yeah. Look, guys, I'm back onto the barrel aged.
Yeah,
On the back of the bottle, it does say something about a cocktail, which I have no experience with and don't know how to make a gin and tonic, let alone anything serious. But I think it was ginger ale or something that you sort of recommend if once you've had it neat, that might be a bit of a goer.
Ginger ale.
Yeah. So I had a girls' weekend last weekend, and I cracked out the barrel-aged gin, and I muddled strawberries with the barrel-aged gin and added ginger ale, and they all loved it. So, yeah, it's definitely a winner. If you have to mix it, then yeah, go that route.
But go that little bit further. Don't get the generic high sugar ginger ale. Get one of the Australian sort of versions like Cappy or Strangelove. It's definitely much more worth your while. You're spending that money on a premium product, spend on your premium mixers because it showcases it so much better.
So much better because they're made for Australian spirits.
And I guess that's an interesting thing. And Crafty, you'd know this as well, is that when you barrel age a gin, the complexity is so intense that you don't really want to cloud that or suffocate that. And you wouldn't recommend mixing a Craftworks whiskey with too many mixes. It would be an afterthought. But as soon as the word gin is on a bottle, you go, okay, so what do I mix it with? So it's almost that balance, trying to find that middle ground between gin, which people love to mix, and that's great, but also an aged spirit. Yeah, I mean, so Crafty, you're drinking it neat, obviously, but have you experimented as somebody who works in aged spirits primarily?
With the barrel aged gin, no, to be honest. I've just drunk it straight. I tasted it through the R&D process. I could see how the whiskey was influencing, how the sherry cask was influencing, and to me, it didn't need anything. But what Ally was saying there with ginger beer, I'd like to try that. I think that could be quite fascinating. I mean, I experiment with new make. We're all big fans of new make, and one of the things what is that? Put that away. That's not a local. My new make, I drink my new make with ginger beer and a little bit of the Mac, just a little bit of that nut liqueur. I love it, absolutely love it. So, yeah, I like playing around with white spirits.
I'm just going to mix a bit of soda with this. Just go pretty much
one
and one to see how that works. Again, I don't know about anything about cocktails. I'm terrible at them. But I'm in love with bitters at the moment, so I might play around with them. A couple of questions.
Walnut bitters in this would be amazing.
Walnut bitters. I have some somewhere. I might need to run away, but and grab them. A couple of questions. So Shane Casey asks, what was the entry strength and what strength is it now? It's 47% now. Ally, what strength did it go into the barrel at?
I think it went in at 59.
49.
No, 49, sorry.
49, so not a huge discrepancy. Yeah. Dave Pierce asks, have you tried it in a gin old-fashioned cocktail?
I have not yet, but I really want to because that is like the key. So good suggestion, David.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of notes there that could work.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've got World Gin Day to figure that out, which is tomorrow.
24 whole hours of nothing but gin old fashions.
Yeah. I would not complain.
and we have essentially this collaboration is, Craftworks and Karu, but playing it's an away game for Craftworks. It's playing on Karu's turf. It's a gin with a bit of whiskey influence. So Chris comes in with a comment of, is there potentially anything in the works for a Karu whiskey? Maybe collaboration where it's the opposite, where we're talking about Karu whiskey as the away team playing on the Craftworks home ground.
He won't let us have any new make.
I have offered my mash tun. I have said, come on down, guys. And
yes, there is. We just haven't talked to Crafty about it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll come down to Craftworks and we'll start mashing grains and stuff like that, and just
100% there is.
Stay there in a tent for about a week. And
I'm just going to run and find some walnut bitters. I'll be back in a second.
with all spirits, it's weird. We're talking to no Scotty.
That's all right.
But to carry on that conversation,
What was the question?
there's different projects that we've talked about that potentially we'll work on in the future, and it's an exciting time. It is a real exciting time because we're all open to things. There's no hard and fast rules, and we like to try things. It might not always work, but we like to try things, and telling the story of how things happen and go along too is great. I think that's a big part of people that follow us. They like our transparency and the stories that we tell. The good, as I say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there is ugly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's why we gel so well off each other.
So I've got a 1-to-1 with soda water and barrel aged.
Yeah, right.
And thanks to the team at Think Spirits and Nicole Reed and everyone there for letting me test run the full range of Fee Brothers bitters for the week.
The same thing.
Beautiful. How many dashes do you reckon?
I just did 2.
2. Beautiful.
Which one is it? The walnut that is it?
Yeah.
You're right.
It's really good. Yeah, this is. Do I have to share it?
Oh my God.
I literally have a bag full of all the Fee Brothers bitters that
Yeah.
I'm going to test run this weekend. And,
What about the
jalapeno
jalapeno bitters? That'd be interesting.
Yeah, there's a bit of Scrappy's firewater around here somewhere. There's a bit of jalapeno in it. Jalapenos, as we say in Sydney.
Oh, fancy.
You talked about you asked the question of, is there a Karu Craftworks whiskey collaboration in the mix? Currently, no, but we have very lightly talked about it, and one of the reasons we've talked about it is, before we were talking about whiskey, before rum. Are we a rum distillery? Are we a gin distillery? Are we all of these things? Do we have whiskey? No, there's an art form between each spirit. And that's why Crafty came to us. This is why we started this collaboration, was the fact that Crafty came to us and said, I want to do a gin, but I don't know what I'm doing. And like in the most simplistic form.
Yeah, we all speak our own spirit languages. So we speak gin, whereas Crafty speaks whiskey.
And so when it comes to making whiskey, we're not just going to go, oh, suddenly we can just make whiskey. That's just crazy.
No, that's
talk.
ludicrous.
And so when we've been slowly picking Crafty's brain, sorry, Crafty, you don't know about this, about making whiskey, because for us to start producing whiskey and start laying down whiskey and anything like that, we would want to be working with whiskey producers and learn the art and working with them, and because there's no rush in any of these. There's no rush in any spirits.
It's not going anywhere. It's just getting bigger and better.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in you surround yourself with good people, and you have mentors. And for my whiskey story, I've been so fortunate because I've got mentors like Brian Hollingworth from Blackgate. I learned a lot from Brian. In my early IB casks, most of them were stored at Blackgate. Got to the point where one day he said, mate, you got to get them out. You got to get your own place. It was getting too much. Marty, Marty Pye from Riverbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah, massive. I love the guy, and a mentor, taught me a lot. And Mark Burnsy, who built my still, who is a distiller. I speak to Burnsy on a regular basis, a really good mate of mine, and you wait until you taste what's coming out of Ashland.
What we've tried is incredible.
Yeah, what we tried was really good.
It's scary stuff. It's really, really good. So
it's its finest.
Yeah, I credit a lot of what I do, and I'm learning all the way, still learning. And yeah, surround yourself with good people, share your information, you learn off each other. So Nick and Ally are gin, and I learned a lot about gin, and I've gone off and I've bought my books and I've learned my own stuff, and I've come back and I bat ideas off Nick and Ally like I did today, which was interesting. That comment, Nick, was very interesting. And then so when they've got questions on whiskey, I'll tell them what I know. And now I'm making rum. tapping people and going, oh, yeah, this rum thing. So what's involved with this rum thing? So, and I'm learning. So, but that's our industry. It's we're a small craft collaborative industry. The Tasmanians do it so well, I think. In New South Wales, we've been trying over the last couple of years to really create a spirit, an energy, a collaborative environment. I think we're doing it, and not just New South Wales, Australia.
Australia's doing a lot of good things. Biasly, because we're in New South Wales, we're doing a lot. Of
Australia's taking the storm. I mean, you look at what we just picked up you look at what Australia just picked up in the Global Gin Awards alone. It's incredible. And
even in like other spirits as well, like you look at the global competitions and you just go, wow, like we're kicking butt. It's really good.
Yeah, we are.
It's a real movement.
Oh yeah.
Shane asked the question about a barrel-aged aviation, also known as a spruce moose. Spruce moose could be a goer.
Like, because like wood gets really sour when you add too much water into it. Like lemon's pretty sour anyway. It all depends on like the micro
truckload of gin in there, make it like.
You'd have to have it at a pretty high percentage.
That's the answer to all problems, isn't it? Just throw more gin at it. That's how I'd like all my problems. Just throw gin at it. It'll be fine.
Come over to Karu. We'll talk about it then. Yeah.
And speaking of like the interconnectivity and the mateship around the Australian distilling industry, Dave Pearce has offered to, I think, whoever will take this up, but I think he's doing a Karu at this point in time. He'll trade some whiskey new make for some of the rum new make. Now, what Dave doesn't understand, or maybe he hasn't grasped here, is that everything that happens on the Oak Barrel live stream, I take a commission. So 10% of both those new makes will need to be delivered to me. Then I can put you in touch and make that happen. So I'm happy for it to go ahead, but there is, there's certain kickbacks and behind like brown envelopes, but please put like bottles in the brown envelopes. I don't want a brown envelope full of rum new make.
I want to do a quick little shout out to our little distillery in Marrickville, Mobius. Have the apple pie.
Oh my God.
If no one here has not had the apple pie, go and get it right now. So Crafty came around for bottling. We miscommunication between the two of us. We didn't measure the closures at the top.
Yeah.
And we suddenly needed heat shrinks to get it done. We called Mobius. They sent us some. And, it's just like the small time, that's the one. I
can't actually pronounce the name of it either. I just call
Moreau.
Yeah.
French.
Yeah, that's the one.
And the only reason I know that is because there was a bike rider who came very, very close to winning the Tour de France on a couple of times. His last name was Moreau. Yeah. So thanks to Phil Liggett, I know how to pronounce it.
I was testing you and you passed. So
More are you.
Yeah. Also like with the whole like the whole distillery things kind of collaborating and being really nice to each other and stuff like that. David, we still have the mint growing from Gin Palooza in our garden was your display last year.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's made a really good
we took it home and planted it. Yeah, it's going
thriving.
well.
It's like it's making really good Vietnamese food. So thank you.
Yeah. On that note as well, I actually have a sample of the apple pie liqueur from Mobius sitting under the counter. And I also have a sample of this now sitting under the counter. So anyone who wants to come into the Oak Barrel and try before you buy, you're more than welcome. It is time sensitive though, because I will drink it at some point. Whether it's tonight or next week or the week after, it'll go. But if you do want to try any of this stuff, feel free to come in and ask for me, or if I'm not here, they'll just be under the counter so someone can say good day and pull that out. Good to see that David is happy to pay the commission. So good that deal can now happen. And a bit of a shout out, I think, from Shano and all of us to Crafty with the bottle kill just then, a bottle, that we know is, we know every bottle is very special to you, but that's what Friday nights are for, is the, killing bottles.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's Blue 01. It's the only bottle I've got that I've broken down to strength, to bottling strength, and I'm testing it. It's passing.
I often test spirits and wines, even like sometimes even various whiskies and gins that I often, in fact, this is a very good case of it. I often have to double test the Lightning gin from Karu, just as a tester, just to make sure that the batches aren't like getting away. There's no drop in quality.
Lightning does strike twice. Is
well. It's about 27 times in my case, but that's all right.
It's a pretty fucking good gin, that one.
Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad. Those little good little distillers out of Karu. Good little distillers out of Karu.
That one's Ally. So Affinity, we created together over 6 months. We took about 26 attempts. We didn't really talk to anyone. We didn't show anyone.
Miss heaps of friends' birthdays, so I'm sorry, but we love you.
We didn't put ourselves out on Instagram and say we're starting this thing. We kind of just got this thing right.
Right.
And then we released it, and I was like, Ally, we should do a Navy strength. And I was like, we're only doing a Navy strength if we use this one botanical. And she found this tiny little plant that was shoved at the back of the distillery. So I had to research it for, I don't know, a month to make sure it was actual use it and it wasn't going to kill you and it was edible. And it turns out this one plant came over from England. It's a certain botanical that they use in like old English cooking and custards and stuff like that. It's and it gives this like floral, earthy,
it's very
component.
green.
And then she's like, we have to use this because when I was a kid, I used to pull this apart and
my parents would get mega pissed off at me about it, by the way.
And that same, because the distillery is on a family property, that same strain had been grafted and put at Ally's parents' house and moved to the distillery.
And so when we were going around looking at that particular botanical, none of them had the same profile, which I was annoyed about. And then she's like, we have to use this. So it was like Christmas. We just sold our first lot of gin and all these things that are going on. And we put it together and Ally like made the recipe around that one. Like I collaborate on probably about 20% of the recipe of that one. It is really Ally, who is our distiller, and I'm very proud of that one. And then this one botanical, we built this gin around and put so much more. We've got 9 botanicals in Lightning, and everything works around this one to make this the core. And it gives this like garden rain. It's like you drink Lightning. It's like It feels like it's outside. It's raining. It's like light and fresh. So anyway, we distilled it. We put it together. We designed the labels, all that sort of stuff. And we went, let's just see how we go getting some tasting notes for this one. We sent it over to San Fran, and its very first batch pulled a double gold. And we were just asking for feedback.
And from there, we just went... It was just like, holy shit, like, okay. So when the fires came, obviously... We had to graft it. We grafted and evacuated that one strain of botanical because it's... the strain of the botanicals is also such a big part of gin that I think it's kind of lost with certain ones is each one gives a different flavor profile off. Yeah. Can't talk about it too much, industry secret.
I think you've done everything.
I was just about to ask, and obviously we all love you, Nick, but it's like, so what do you actually do at the distillery? But apparently it's just researching botanicals.
He does everything. I do like the smallest job, which is just mashing, fermenting, low-wise distilling.
Oh, the smallest.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The smallest job.
Everything else.
Mashing, fermenting, low wines, and distilling.
Yeah.
So Ally does.
I do that.
All the distillation.
And I do all of that. Nick does everything else, which is.
Yeah, and I agree. Distilling's overrated. Don't need that.
Ally, he looks after your burns, though, doesn't he?
Oh, don't even get me started. My stomach and my hands are just, I can't handle it.
But,
yeah, literally Nick keeps.
I love you guys so much.
He keeps the entire place running. He keeps everybody on task. He does everything else. What I do is so minuscule.
Oh, it's huge.
In comparison to anything that I even possibly.
I'm very proud that my wife is the distiller.
Crafty, can we like go halves in the Nick and Ally show as producers? I reckon this could be a goer.
This could be a Foxtel every Sunday night.
Yeah, on your streaming service, 1 episode a week. Happy days.
I'm up for it.
You need personality.
Do I get paid in gin?
Yeah. Well, got nothing else to pay you in, so.
Do you get paid in mezcal?
Yeah, we work something out. Okay. By the way, I've been experimenting a little bit with this. I probably over-soded to start off with. So I think roughly this is, that's what I did. 2 parts gin to 1 barrel-aged 47% gin to 1 part soda with about 2.5 Black Walnut Fee Brothers bitters dashes, which is 2.5 because I put 3 in, but I've then put more gin in and drunk a little to get it right. But I think that's pretty good. That's, as far as Scotty cocktail skills go, they're not particularly high.
This is what we're drinking at the moment.
When we get our tasting room up, we're going to have you over for Scotty cocktails, and we're going to film
Scotty cocktail. Yeah, we're drinking these 3 together.
So you were talking about poisoning people before. Scotty cocktail. If your weird botanicals didn't kill him in the first time, Scotty cocktails will definitely get him the second time around. I survived weird botanicals, COVID, bushfires, only to be killed by a Scotty cocktail.
Yep, 2020.
Yeah, it's like, we will get you at some point.
Yeah.
Look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. But I think we said we'd go for an hour. We're eking closer to 2 hours at this point in time.
Wow.
And I think we should probably all continue chatting after this. And I do know that the Scotch Malt Whisky Society with Matt Bailey is doing open Zoom chats at the moment. So maybe we should all jump across there and chat there in a second and have a few cocktails and carry on drinks, if not with ourselves. But I want to do a really great shout out to Dave Pearce, to Shane Casey, to all the people that jumped in earlier, to Kathleen and Chris and everyone. Scott McCarthy, who looks after the Seppeltsfield Distillery down in South Australia. Just say a quick g'day to you, mate. Everyone that's jumped in. But Chris Fletcher and James, everyone that's been across the past 2 hours with us.
Wow.
It's been great. But I want to thank you guys, not only for coming on and talking shit with me, because I'd be doing this by myself if it wasn't for you guys. But also, congratulations on the release.
All right, thanks. Yeah, and that's what this is about.
And for for the resilience of 2020 when you guys have been hit, like COVID sucks, coronavirus is shithouse, but everything before that, from like people see the fires from January. And, at Crafty, you got to say like November, pretty much everything stopped. So big thank you to go to you guys. And any final thoughts or whatever you want to say, free airtime, go for your life.
Thank you so much to Oak Barrel. Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to literally everyone. Thank you so much for Crafty for trusting us with one of your most significant barrels. Just working with us and everyone who works with us, all the love and support from the industry who have logged in, everyone who has comments and everything like that. Thank you so much for the support. We love you, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and I'd only add to that, say, if it wasn't for our supporters who love what we do, love our storytelling and the good, the bad, the ugly, and making our products, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. So we're humbled by your support. We're appreciative of your support, and just get out there and support Australian craft spirits, craft beer, craft wine, craft everything. There's some really, really good products out there, and most people that are making Australian spirits, they'll have a chat with you. They're approachable, and they'll tell you the backstory, and that's exciting. And we're makers, but we're drinkers as well. We love doing it as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you, Scotty, as always, mate. Thank you.
Quick update. We've actually sold about 3 bottles of my 6 bottles that I had during this chat. So I'll probably start taking them off the shelf because there's not that much of it. If we sell out, on the Karu website, there is a link to the craft drinks market. where the rest of the bottles will be. So I'm not going to finish over all that. I'll just take them off the shelf. But yeah, thank you to everyone. We probably might, I've got the vibe. I'm feeling good. I might go and crash the Scotch Malt Whisky Society live chat if Crafty and Ally and Nick are interested. We might go over there. So you can all join us over there.
Yeah.
But thank you, everyone. I'm going to wrap this one up now. We really appreciate it. And let's all get out to regional New South Wales and regional Australia as soon as we possibly can.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thank you so much, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Drink piss and be happy.
That's the spirit.
That's the spirit.